from the Bacta tank contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue.
We would be honored if you would join us.
How are you feeling? Your latest workups on your condition indicate that all damage has been reversed. Recovery is total. I believe you have been quite fortunate. No further thanks are necessary, Commander, but you are most welcome. It is my function and pleasure as a medical droid to help and heal human beings.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Hello, welcome everyone to Star Wars from the Bacta tank. This is the Clone Wars edition exclusive to our Patreon subscribers. And today we're going to be discussing one of our favorite episodes. Am I right, Dave?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it deals with one of, I think, is the most underrated villain of all Star Wars.
Oh, without a doubt. And we're going to be talking about Lair of Grievous, which is episode 10 of season 1. And I will say that it is the best episode of the season.
Oh, dude.
And that's hard. I mean, that's really hard for me to say. Jesus Christ, this music's so fucking loud right now for some reason. Couldn't even hear myself. Who's running this board, Dave? Can we fire him, please, immediately? It's hard for me to say that with absolute definity and confidence because Cloak of Darkness, the previous episode, was also good. But I almost feel like they're a bit of a part 1 and part 2 because there's a bit of a parallel there, or a contrast, or parallel examples of a student who respects what they learn and one who still needs to learn and pays the consequences.
Yeah.
Because in Cloak of Darkness, what did we see? We saw Ahsoka work in conjunction with the Jedi Master.
Yes.
She also was able to bestow a bit of wisdom on her master. And then in this episode, Lair of Darkness, we see a bit of the opposite. We see someone that could very well have been Ahsoka if she was not as wise as she is. And that's something I never picked up on when I first watched this show. But now watching it sequentially in order, you can start picking some of those instances out a bit more.
Yeah.
And I like that because there's still a lesson there. That's what Clone Wars did for the first season. There's lessons.
Yeah. It's like the more you know and then you see the rainbow. But like when you get to this, the more you know is done more subtly, and instead it focuses on telling a engaging narrative.
Yes, absolutely. But it's also a very nuanced story, and that's something that Clone Wars will always have above every other new show. Because I dig Star Wars Rebels, love Star Wars Rebels, and I'm okay with Star Wars Resistance. But something that Clone Wars was able to do, even from the get-go, despite some of the hiccups and the things that we just didn't like that kind of marred the first season, there was a very nuanced story. It wasn't just about one person. The focus, yes, was on Anakin and Ahsoka, but there were so many episodes where they were able to delve into side characters. And typically those side characters were used to explore avenues that would parallel our key players.
Yes.
And that's what worked so well in this episode for me. Lair of Grievous. Not only that, Dave, yes, it tackles or focuses on one of my favorite characters of all time. And this is something that anyone who listens to our shows know, that I am an avid General Grievous fan, and I feel like he's never, ever gotten his due.
Yeah.
Clone Wars, he gets his due a bit. But in Attack of the Clone or in Revenge of the Sith, he is so imposing, so fucking cool, and they don't use him enough, in my opinion. It doesn't ruin the movie. I understand Lucas loves putting these awesome characters, and maybe that's part of his genius. He does this with almost every movie. He gives you just a little bit of a cool character, and you're like, "What the fuck, dude? I want more. What happened?"
Exactly. And
maybe that's something he does on purpose, because isn't that what you want? Isn't that what you want as a creator? People to say, "I want fucking more of that."
Well, especially in regards to him world building, because that's what Lucas is a genius at. He's not just a world building, but a universe building.
Yeah.
He makes you want to know what else is out there.
Do you think he tells his wife that? He'll, "Come here, honey, I'm going to world build," if you know what I mean.
World
Come here. We have little walrus children.
Oh, wow.
That's rude. And that's why we'll never, ever be in charge of a convention, an MC at a convention. Star Wars convention. Be like, "All right, let me put your little hands together, everyone. Everyone have a little George Lucas turkey neck. Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Gobble, gobble, gobble. And then that's why we're never invited.
Yeah. All right, Dave, go ahead. What were you saying?
But like, in regards to like Grievous, when you look at just the movies, right? I know people will say Boba Fett is the greatest character of all time that he introduced, or Darth Maul.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, General Grievous.
Mm-hmm.
The design alone made a little 15-minute pilot episode of Star Wars.
He's 100% pulp.
He is 100% pulp. He is
that's
100% George Lucas's creation.
It's so good.
And it is so awesome finally seeing him. I think that the reason why I put this over Cloak of Darkness, this particular episode, is because not only does it actually do like what you were saying, continue the narrative, the parallel storyline that they were telling, but it fixed one of the characters that a lot of Star Wars fans said, "Oh, he's a joke."
Kit Fisto. Yeah. I agree. That's something that I wrote down on my notes. I never liked Kit Fisto just because he's awful in Attack of the Clones. He makes that little grin and he puts his hand up, and it was silly.
It was silly.
It didn't even seem like they put any thought into his costume. He looked a little better in Revenge of the Sith when he got slain by Palpatine
in the end.
But yeah, you're right. He's a character that just he kind of shrugged. Like, this guy's kind of silly looking. But this is an example of why Clone Wars was so cool.
Yeah.
Because they took those characters that we saw just in passing, maybe characters that maybe we didn't care about all that much, and then suddenly they give you a story like this, and you're like, wow, this guy's a fucking badass. Because at the end of the episode, when he takes on Grievous, you realize just how powerful he is as a Jedi. And the fact that this is a true Jedi through and through, Kit Fisto, the fact that he wanted to fall back. He said, "We need to get out of here. We need to go."
Yeah.
It wasn't because he was afraid. It wasn't because he was a coward. It's because he's that powerful and wise that he knows, hey, this might be a battle we can't win
because you don't have, as funny as it sounds, it goes into the argument, he knows he doesn't have the higher ground. He's not on his turf.
Right.
He's on Grievous's turf.
He doesn't want to be cut in half. He doesn't want to lose his dick like Anakin.
Yeah.
He won't be smiling anymore.
He won't be smiling anymore. But like the two characters that basically are enemies are basically like the antagonist and protagonist in this episode are so freaking awesome. By the end of it, you're like going, they took two characters that we all basically said, man, wasted potential from the movies.
Well, that's what
and then said, bang, these two are actually legitimate badasses. You created Grievous to be he is one of the big menaces in the series. And if you see Kit Fisto again, you know that he is a Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
He's a Jedi Master.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked about the ending, because it reframed him, because a lot of us were just like, okay. But by the end of the episode, when we realized, hey, he's not afraid. He doesn't think he's going to lose. He doesn't want to lose the people around him. I think that's what it's more about. It's about it's knowing the fact that his former Padawan, that was his former Padawan, right?
Yeah, Veeb.
Yeah, Nadar. Yeah, Nadar.
Veeb.
Yeah, he. I think it was more about protecting him, because he was being seduced by his lust for revenge, and he was very arrogant and too self-confident. And I think that's more of the reason why Fisto wanted to leave.
Yes.
And then once he died, he was like, well, I'm just going to leave. There's no point in staying here. I'm going to now fall back on my own.
On his own.
Because he's going to have to report this as well. They stumbled upon Grievous's castle. He knows what's at stake. But when he gets, tied down, he doesn't even hesitate. And it says so much about the Jedi way. So many people think Jedis are about fighting, slashing, killing. And yes, there is a swashbuckling aspect to Star Wars that will always be there. But it's the scenarios that you put the Jedis in that will deliver those moments. But they can't be put into those moments just because they're bloodthirsty. They have to be pushed and forced as a last resort. And that's why once Fisto had the opportunity to leave the battle, what did he do? He left. He could have stayed, probably taken out all of them, but he's all, listen, this is not my purpose. My purpose is peace. And I can make peace by leaving. And he left. That's the true Jedi way. And that's something that I feel a lot of Star Wars fans have lost sight of. And I know people use that as an excuse, the pro Last Jedi people, the lovers of Last Jedi, that were attacking the Luke Skywalker fans that wanted Luke Skywalker to fight. Like, well, guys, the Jedi never fought. This makes more sense. I'm like, yes, you're right. You are right. But Lucas believed in the same thing, but he found scenarios to push the Jedi into battle. That was the whole point of the prequels, pushing the alleged peacekeepers of the galaxy into war so that Palpatine could smear them and say, look at them, they want power.
Yeah.
So Lucas found creative ways to push the Jedi into conflict.
Because the one thing I think a lot of people forget is Lucas's inspiration for the Jedi was...
What are the Jedi?
Jedi.
Is that an offshoot?
The inspiration for the Jedi is samurai from Japan.
Yeah.
And if you look at like the code of the samurai or code of the Bushido...
When you say samurai from Japan, are there samurai from Mexico or samurai from...
You never know.
If this is Mexica cursing, yeah.
but like if you look at the inspiration of what Lucas based the Jedi on, all the samurai code basically says we are not out there to fight. We let the fight come to us. Or we get forced into the situation, like what you said. They're defenders.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And
that's why I think this entire episode, Dave, worked, I think, so well. Because in order to get the Jedi there, they were trapped, essentially. And that's where the story really takes root and really delivers. Because we're essentially given an episode that's designed as a horror film.
yes.
From the moment they land on the... what planet is it, by the way?
Oh, man, I had it in my notes that I had it written down. One sec.
Is it... Huh. Yeah, I don't even remember the name of the planet now. I don't think it matters. Whatever the fortress that... Grievous's fortress is on this planet, but the moment they land on that planet, you immediately get the horror vibes.
Yeah.
And the best part about it is they actually went with a very specific genre of horror. This is the Star Wars version of a murder house.
Yes, it is.
I mean, even when I first watched this over 10 years ago, I was like, Jesus, this is so fucking good. And that's the beautiful thing about a TV show like this, is that you can delve into those different genres from time to time to help world build, to help build up the mythos of this series. and also, of course, explore characters like General Grievous.
Yeah.
So, what did you like the most?
I'm glad you brought up actually about the whole setting of Grievous's castle too, because yeah, it is like a murder house. It is that callback to the Hammer films. And when I rewatched this, I'm like going, the fog, the castle, Jesus Christ, this is like I'm watching a Hammer film, right?
Yeah.
From the 70s. And that's one of the things I think is so underrated about this episode is everyone constantly talks about the fear of looking at Vader's castle, right? You have Malachor and Vader's castle, the Obsidian Pyramid. Grievous's castle, his lair, honestly could match Darth Vader's castle in intimidation. Because if you were to actually, just like what you said, land on the planet and you have to go in that lair, I wouldn't go in there. Why the hell would I want to go in there? Fisto and his group had a reason. I mean, they were going in there because they thought that Newt Gunray was there and they wanted to rearrest him. They didn't know, but still, if I landed on that planet, I'm not going in that castle.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, they did a really good job to immerse the audience. Because one thing that really stood out for me as well was the sound design. I mean, everything just worked so great in this episode. And it's funny, it's funny when it goes to show you that Dave, or us at least, it gives me a little boost of confidence that we definitely understand when something's fucking great.
Yeah.
Because this episode did win a Golden Reel Award for Best Sound Editing in a television animation. And deservedly so, because as I said, if you put this on your big screen and you pump up those surround sound speakers, you feel like you're in that fucking castle.
Yeah.
Really good.
Me and you have talked about the animation of the pluses and minuses of Clone Wars animation in the past. And honestly, this episode shows the incredible pluses of Clone Wars animation.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it deserved actually an award for not just sound design, but animation itself. I mean, the tone was set perfectly in this episode.
Yeah, they did a really good job. The director, Atsushi Takuchi, did this.
Yeah.
Oh, motherfucker. Is he Japanese? No wonder.
He gets it.
Holy shit.
And the thing
He's a Japanese animation director.
Yep.
I did not put that together, and that is why this episode felt so fucking zen.
Yes. And
wow.
On top of that, you get those little nuances from that, but the one thing that I think goes overlooked is Grievous himself. They sold Grievous as that Frankenstein monster. I'm sorry, when he's running around half made, that gives me the creeps.
It's body horror.
It's body horror.
Especially when you find out a great character development moment. You find out that Grievous purposely did this to his body.
Did this to himself.
Like, that is body. Oh my god, body. What's it called when you cut yourself? Why my brain is not working?
I know it's called cutting, because like,
body mutilation.
Yeah.
When you mutilate your body for whatever reason, I mean, it's
creepy.
Yeah, it's one of the. That's why I can't watch body horror, because it just disturbs me. But when it's done by the actual person themselves, I mean, and that's why this episode was so good as well, because number one, that adds to the horror vibe. Number two, you learn about a character that we have already said is not just underrated, but just underdeveloped.
Yes.
Yes, throughout the years, over the last, 12, 13, 14 years, we've gotten more and more. But at that time, we just didn't know much. And to find out that he doesn't view this as replacement parts or why would you do this? No, these are improvements that I did. I did not submit to anything.
Yes.
These were my choice.
Dude, his conversation.
My improvements.
His conversation with his droid was so intriguing, because Grievous makes it sound like he's proud of this. He's proud of doing this to himself, and
He's
it's
such a warrior.
the organics within him is his weakness.
Yeah,
And
he will
"Oh."
do anything to be the best warrior.
Yeah.
And you realize there's so much to a little bit of tribalistic behavior when it comes to Grievous, but there's so much there that it's an atrocity that we've never gotten anything long form on Grievous. I mean, even in this new era that Disney controls, how are we not getting some type of spin-off series with the Kalish?
Yeah, everyone talks about.
Have we ever seen anything? Have we ever seen the
No.
Kalish in an animation?
We've never seen them, and it's one of those things that everyone constantly harps at. We don't know what Yoda's alien species is. Yeah, fair enough.
And we don't ever
But-
need to know. That's one thing that we need to keep a secret.
Yeah, but the one Grievous, I want to know more about his alien species because we know less about him
Yeah.
than we do Yoda. And I'm with you. Keep Yoda a mystery. That's fine. Grievous, though, it's within this episode. It makes me want to know more about his species
And
because
we
how
do-
they view organic.
And we do get to see what he looks like a little bit before the cybernetic implants or cybernetic replacements because those statues
Yes.
throughout the castle are him
Yep.
at different stages. The one that we see first where he's holding that head up is when I believe he's in his complete form, completely organic, no
Yes.
implants, no replacement parts. And then as they move through the castle, they see more and more statues,
more statues.
and more limbs are replaced on these statues with mechanical parts.
And the cool thing about it, when I rewatched this, the first time I saw it, I actually got fooled and I thought, oh, these are just people that he knows. These are, different people in his family line. And then later on when I'm watching, I'm going, oh no, this is him.
It's almost like someone, because he's a warrior, you can almost view it as it's disturbing, but it's almost like
disturbing.
a trophy room. But he's the trophy.
Yes.
And he looks at himself as maybe not as accomplished, and he uses those statues as a way to remind himself of what he used to be.
Yes.
It's really powerful, and I think there's so much there psychologically that they could really develop an intriguing series on Grievous. If they were to do a prequel of sorts to his debut in Revenge of the Sith, and we learn about him as a Kalish warlord, I mean, the sky's the limit with a series like that.
And
What can you not do?
And again, think about it this way too. We got all of this plus everything else we've been talking about in this particular episode in 30 minutes. That's the runtime. 30 to 45 minutes. We got all that. That's why this particular episode I hold so high on my list of favorite Clone Wars episodes because of the fact that what they were able to do in one episode, where normally we'd be going, oh, we want a little bit more, and normally that's like seen as a bad thing, like you didn't have enough time. They gave us so much. They made us want to know more later. Like we said, do another episode like this, and it's one of those things I've said is like my only gripe about Clone Wars is the fact that I never really got a sequel of sorts to this episode, because we all know where Grievous's destiny is. He's going to be killed by Obi-Wan at Revenge of the Sith.
No, he's not.
But I really wanted them to dig even deeper into Grievous. But when you think about it, I honestly think that they were worried that they were going to get way too dark. I mean, you're dealing with a Frankenstein type story of body horror, body manipulation. Do we want to bring that right at that time? Did they want to do something like that to a show that was geared for kids?
I think they needed to do something like this to solidify our feelings and thoughts on Grievous. he's a man or a warrior that doesn't necessarily enjoy killing. He's very different from the Sith. I think that needed to be made clear. He's a warlord. He's a warrior.
Warlord, yeah.
And he looks at his killing as honorable in a lot of ways. It's very tribalistic, as I was saying at the top of the show. But that's what makes his character to this day one of the most unique characters to date. The fact that he was a leader in the Separatist army and he wasn't on board is also a little sad. Meaning he wasn't on board the plan. He didn't know what Palpatine was doing. He didn't know what Dooku was doing. He thought he was fighting a real war.
Yes.
And to find out that this warlord has dedicated his life to a sham that he never even realized, even before he died, I mean, that kind of sucks for him. But this episode, I feel, gave him the respect he deserved.
Yeah.
Because he's always losing. He's always looking like kind of a bit of a schmuck. Like, yeah, he's powerful, he's strong, but he never wins. He was able to reclaim his, I mean, for a lack of a better word, his manhood of sorts when he killed Nahar. Is that his name?
Yeah, that was
Nadar.
brutal.
When he killed Nadar, it's like, finally, we saw him actually do something and kind of set things right. But still, it wasn't good enough for Dooku, which I thought was funny because how many times does Grievous just hang up on Dooku in the opening 10 episodes? Every time I laugh. He doesn't let him finish talking.
Yeah, he doesn't let him finish talking because he hangs up. And I was like cracking up that basically Dooku as well in the very end. I love that conversation between them because it runs in parallel to like what you were saying, how we view Jedis and the master apprentice thing. And then you see it on the other side with the Sith when Dooku basically says, very good. You've done very well. And then he finds out he let Kit Fisto away, but there's still room for improvement. Yeah. I'm like going, man, nothing makes you happy.
Yeah, he's like that dad nobody wants.
No one wants.
I never make you happy, Dad.
And you wonder why he hangs up on him.
I know. All right, Dave, this is the end of our discussion. Give me your final thoughts in a nutshell, please.
Oh, final thoughts. I think because at this point, if you've been listening, you know my score for this.
Oh, Jesus. Do not do it, Dave.
Yes, I will.
Oh, my God.
It's my second one. It's 100.
Oh, God. You're an asshole.
This is a must. It's a must-watch episode for any Star Wars fan.
You are slowly diminishing your validity.
But I told you, it's my favorite one, so yeah, 100.
Validity is not even the right word. What am I looking for? Your
Credibility.
Credibility. Yeah, because David just gives everything 100. Who gives a shit what he says?
No, I've only given.
You're
two
the opposite
things.
of Thomas.
I've only given two things 100. Two. I've given high scores, but never a full 100.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna give this episode a 90.
Really?
It's strong. It's a very, very strong episode, but it would have been better if Grievous killed more people. No, it's a good episode, chock full of character development. There's so much there, and the fact that I would like to view this as the spiritual sequel to the previous episode, because I do see that narrative parallel between Ahsoka and Undari. What's her name?
Undari, yeah.
Is that her name?
Yeah.
The other Jedi? I always forget her name. Luminara. Luminara.
Who's Undari? Because
It's her last name.
Oh,
Luminara Undali. You see, you have that bit, and then you have the bit here with Nadar and Kit Fisto, and then you combine that with the development that we got on Grievous. Yeah, and without a doubt, I think this is my favorite episode of the first season, if memory serves me right. So that being said, this does conclude our discussion. Dave, thank you.
Thank you. May the Force be with us.